Welcome to the Free Speech Nation podcast with me, Andrew Doyle. Today, I am delighted to welcome my guest, Arielle Scarcela. Arielle is a YouTuber. He's been making YouTube videos since 2009, mostly around the issues of LGBT rights. Today, we discussed all sorts of things around the LGBTQIA plus community and its various initialisms, whatever it's calling itself at the moment. And we got deep into the issue of the problems within that community, the rifts that have been caused by what's become known as the culture war. I hope you enjoy our conversation as much as I did. Thanks so much for joining me, Arielle. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Let's start with you and about your background, because a lot of the people might not be familiar with your YouTube channel. So where did you come from? How did you get into doing what you're doing?
I'm like the OG lesbian of YouTube. There was like 3 of us, and I'm still the only one that's still standing 12 years later. Like, I've been doing this for 12 years.
Wow.
Yeah, like I was doing this before gay marriage was legal in the United States, if you really think about it.
And a lot has changed.
Oh my God. We're going to talk about it. We're going to dig deep, because this is just insanity.
Well, let's start with your YouTube channel. I mean, you started back in the day, so, you know,
2009.
Gay activism looked very different.
Yes.
Then what was it about YouTube that you felt this is the way to do it?
I fell into it, believe it or not. Like it wasn't a career back then. Yeah. It wasn't like it is now. Now everybody now you ask kids that are 5 years old what they want to be, they say influencer. And I'm like, ugh. Like, that wasn't what it was.
Well, the phrase wasn't even there, was it? Influencer didn't exist.
No, you know, we were just like, it was 2009, there was no gay marriage. Kids were like still literally, you know, suicidal. I mean, kids still are, but way more back then.
Yeah.
And I just felt like I had just gotten fired from my first job, my first full-time job, for the same reason they hired me. It's just a long story.
Okay.
Yeah, it's stupid. They didn't have the resources, basically. They wanted to, and then they didn't. They fired me, and I was like, well, I just got out of school. Let me take a summer off. And I started making funny videos on YouTube. And then people somehow found me, and I was like, oh, like, there's a whole audience out here that needs help.
So were those early videos all about
It was just about coming out and silly lesbian things and gay things and stereotype videos and like comedy and like back when it was funny to joke about gay people.
Yeah, okay.
Can't do that now.
And then at some point, something shifted, and because now you very much identify as not being on the left, not being part of what the LGBTQIA plus.
Oh, I hate that word even. I hate that acronym. Yeah. I hate it because I'm not QIA plus. I'm just the L. Yeah. Like, we're same-sex attracted, not same gender. That's a whole other issue, right? That's happening. Like the complete changing of the definition of what words mean. Yeah. Which the activists act like it's nothing, but it's a big deal. Yeah. Because it comes down to the law, which is why in America, have you seen recently, they're interviewing the new Supreme Court justice, the black woman. Yeah. The first black woman, blah, blah, blah. Okay, that's great. The first thing that they asked her was, can you define a woman? Yeah. And the left was like, bah! No, it's actually an important question. How are you going to uphold the law and women's rights if you can't define that word?
And she said she couldn't because she's not a biologist.
This is where we're at, though, right now. Right. This is insanity.
So that's a really key point that you raised about the acronym, the initialism, whatever, LGBTQIA. Yeah. And it is, you can't be all at once, you know.
We call them, the people in the middle or the right, we call it the alphabet people. Yeah. It's like, we do not want to identify. Like, it's sad that I had to come out in a video 2 years ago to say that I am not one of these crazy people. Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, I have this experience with a lot of gay people I talk to. They're embarrassed by this stuff. Yes. Because all of the many letters, I mean, there are some people add a 2 S, some people add an extra P, an extra L. Like, what is this? Yeah.
Even Justin Trudeau couldn't say it right at one of his press conferences. He stumbled over it because it's really hard. And then you have the flag with the extra stripes now and the extra symbols. It's embarrassing for gay people, I think, to see this stuff.
It's really embarrassing. Yeah, I mean, like, it's literally reversed itself over time. Yeah. Now we have the same gender attraction, but people can't define what a woman is, what a man is. So how can you define homosexuality? It's erasing our rights.
So let's try and work out what it is that is doing this. When they say being a lesbian is someone attracted to the same gender, what is the problem with that? Okay, so the problem with that, it wouldn't be as much of a problem if people weren't so extreme with it, right? Mm-hmm. The left has become an extremist section, honestly, of whatever the political spectrum. It used to be people like my friend Blair White, if she was a lesbian, which she's not, she's straight, she dates men. Mm-hmm. She's a trans woman. If she walked into a lesbian bar, not one person would question it. Yeah. Because she does her best she passes. Yeah. She looks like a woman. She looks female. She's not. But when you enter a space, it's like walking into a Black Lives Matter, not Black Lives Matter, a black community center,
and you're white, people would be like, what the hell?
Yeah.
Like, it's not that it's wrong, but it's like, I don't, like, what are you doing here?
So then what's changed now? What's the difference now?
Because now you have people that are identifying as women, that are claiming to be women, that look like you.
Yeah.
And people say, oh, that doesn't happen often. It does. I can show you my dating apps. It literally does.
So there's this thing on lesbian dating apps, people with full beards.
Yes.
They look like lumberjacks.
Literally, literally. And the problem isn't, like, my problem isn't you identifying as a lesbian. Self-identify, however the hell you want. Self-identify means only you can see yourself that way. Fine. I can see myself as whatever the hell I want as well. Maybe I see myself as super butch today, but even though I know I'm not, right? In my head, I put together IKEA furniture today. I feel super butch, right? But I'm like, no, I'm really femme. But you have these different identities, people identifying differently.
Yeah.
Like we said, and they're not doing anything to change their outer appearance. And when you come into you're inserting yourself into a space that you don't belong. That's the real issue for me. Not that you're identifying a certain way. I don't care how you identify. Call yourself a lesbian and date a man. I mean, I think it's stupid, and I think it makes us look stupid. And it's not the actual definition of what a lesbian is. But go ahead, do whatever the hell you want.
Because their view is that their gender is like an innate thing. Right. It's like a soul. Right. It's something that's sort of fixed within them, and it doesn't matter what your body is or how you present.
But that's not how sexual orientation works.
No.
No. Like, I could prove it to you. If somebody because somebody said, well, it's not about physical appearance. It's not all about physical appearance, which is true, because you have somebody that's blind. We have gay blind people.
Yeah.
How do I know they're also gay? Because they still like male genitalia. Yeah. Like a gay man, right?
Yeah.
They still like the way a man feels, the way a man smells. It's not just about physical. It's about the 5 senses: touch, taste,
of course,
all of this stuff.
Yeah.
So to claim that being even straight or being heterosexual or homosexual has nothing to do with any physical things is ridiculous.
Well, it's a lie, isn't it?
It's a lie.
Yeah.
I didn't know mentally that I was gay. I didn't even know what it was when I was 9 years old. I saw a woman and I was like, okay, like, romantically, I would like to hold a woman's hand. You don't think about, like, how somebody's identifying internally. Well, that's not how it works.
There was a study that the BBC did recently where they interviewed a number of lesbians, I think about 150, and many of them were saying that they were often shamed for excluding people from their dating pool if they had male bodies, male genitalia. Yes. So how does that make you feel, that kind of idea? That's what was, I honestly, there were a lot of contributing factors to me leaving the left, but that was the main one, for sure. Mm-hmm. When I saw that at this point in history, which was 2 years ago, at that point in history, lesbians are still getting told they have to like men, like male, I should say male body parts. Yeah. Disgusted. Because that's an old homophobic trope, isn't it? Yeah, you just haven't had the right penis yet. Yeah. And that's all coming back. And now it's just coming back in a little woke package. Yeah. And people are all about it. And then over here we have Stonewall, which is our gay rights movement, which changed that definition, said homosexual is same gender attracted. But I think for gay rights, it's so important that we hold on to this view that it's about recognition of biological difference. Yes. That's built in to, that's what we were shamed for. That's why people said you were mentally ill back in the day. Yes. And now I see those tropes coming back again as well. I see some trans activists saying the reason you're not attracted to us is because you're suffering from trauma, But that's just a recycled version of the far right religious stuff. Right. Right. Mm-hmm. So then, which is the horseshoe theory, right? Like the far left and the far right are closer than they think. Yes, that's exactly. That's what they say. So then, a lot of people are confused about this because they think the LGBT community all get along. Everything's fine. Everyone's happy. Yeah. And actually, I don't know any gay people who think Stonewall defends them now. I think there's a real rift here that people aren't sort of identifying. It's bad. It's bad. Like, and I feel like unless you're either following a bunch of these people like us on Twitter. Yeah. Or unless you're gay yourself and not one of these, or actually you could be gay and one of those, the leftists. But if you're not in the community or at least straight following some gay people, you have no idea that any of this exists. Because none of it makes sense. It doesn't? No. Is it just as bad in America? It's horrible. Right. I think I was told that Americans influence British? Yeah. Is that true? Normally we get things 5 years after you guys. Okay. I think, normally. Okay. In terms of trends. And, right. Okay. I mean, I'm sorry then. I apologize on behalf of Americans. Because, it's bad here too, isn't it? It's pretty bad. It's really bad. Yeah, I mean... Look what's happening. We were talking about this before on camera. Look what's happening to J.K. Rowling. Yeah. They call this TERF Island. I didn't even know that was a thing. That's hilarious. And J.K. Rowling supports actual transsexual people. Openly, yeah, very
openly.
Very
She's a very actual liberal person, which is what I consider myself to be. But, you know, if you don't go along with every single thing the left says, you're a right-wing Nazi.
Do you get any flack from other gay people within the community, or think that you're like a traitor?
To be honest, there's a very few number of actual, in my opinion, actual same-sex attracted people that don't like me.
Right.
I think a lot of them secretly agree with us, but they're afraid. In fact, somebody actually just refollowed me on Instagram yesterday, and I was like, after 3 years, they might be waking up. It's like they unfollowed me, and all of a sudden they like secretly followed me again. And I'm like, all right, so maybe they're, starting to wake up.
What are they?
They're afraid of getting canceled. It's money. Follow the money, right? They're afraid of getting canceled. They're afraid of losing sponsorships. Afraid of losing their
reputation,
their reputations, right? I was going to say their reputations, but also their people are looking up to these people.
Yeah,
they don't want to lose that power, that control over these people that they have.
But just as this is, I think it's
which is the opposite of activism, isn't it?
Yeah. But it's not about gay people versus trans people either.
No, it's not.
There's loads of trans people for whom biological sex is important, because otherwise
that's the whole purpose.
That's why they're trans. Right. So
this is insanity.
So why is it then that a small minority of activists, often who aren't trans themselves, call themselves trans allies?
Correct.
Why do they have so much power?
I don't know.
What's going on?
I don't know how we got to this. I really think that people are afraid of, I think being called the word racist and the word homophobic and the word transphobic, even if you're not those things, has worked itself up to such a high degree that people don't even want to, they're worried even just being called the word.
And that's enough to sort of
That's enough to, I think so. Because I think companies are afraid of losing, again, money.
Yeah.
100% it's all money. What was it, PlayStation? They had, Blair White called this out last June for Pride Month. It was like PlayStation, all like the logos on Twitter and on Instagram were all rainbow, except the one in Saudi Arabia.
Oh yes, of course. Where it would actually make a difference if you had that flag.
Exactly. So these companies are all going woke. They're all losing money, by the way, every time they go woke most of the time. Yes.
Of course.
Coca-Cola, like a lot of Netflix had a lot of issues with these companies. Disney just happened. Yeah, and I live in Orlando part-time, so I see it happening.
Yeah.
And people are just afraid. They want to be better people. And I don't think they actually dive into the issues as much as you and I do, or as much as any of these other people do. I think they just see very surfacey, we don't want to say this, or we don't want to be associated with these people because they're bad.
Well, that's the problem,
and then that's
isn't
it.
it?
They don't want to.
There are actual transphobes. There are actual homophobes.
Yes.
And I think people would, sometimes would lumber you in with those because you're saying you're skeptical about all the sort of identitarian stuff.
Exactly.
But is that an accusation that bothers you when you see the Christian right sort of saying, we've got to do something about this?
Right. It used to. And now, honestly, I'm a Brooklyn girl. I'm from New York. I'm Italian. Like, we kind of have thick skin to begin with.
Yeah.
It used to bother me. It did, obviously. That's why I thought I was on, even though I didn't think, I thought I was on the left because I didn't know I could be in the middle or the right.
Yes.
I thought, like a lot of black people do, unfortunately, I'm black. I have to be on the left. I have to vote Democrat. That's not true. And that's one way we're getting manipulated, right? So I thought that I had to be on that side. And it turns out,
and do you think Joe Biden's made matters worse? Because he was, I was under the understanding that he was elected as the non-woke candidate.
Oh, yeah, right.
Among the Democrats. That he was the option that wouldn't push this stuff. But one of the first things he did when he was in office is sign a bill relating to trans rights.
Yeah.
So is the solution then another Republican president?
I mean, I think a lot of people are waking up. Like a lot of people. Like I have friends of mine that voted for Joe Biden.
Yeah.
And I don't discredit them as friends. Like, think what you think. Like, as long as you're coming at me with facts, then I don't mind.
Right.
If you voted for Joe Biden. Like, if you didn't like some of President Trump's policies, fine. But the lies is when you're voting for somebody just because they were lied about in CNN and stuff, that bothers me because now you're not even on the same ground level, right?
So I mean, this issue about because I just think about what it was like 15 years ago to be a gay person in this country when the flag meant unity. It meant if it was outside a building, meant you were safe there. Right. Now
they have the little things, the little stickers on the windows, right? In America too, safe space.
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Do you not feel unsafe now when you see the?
I see it as a warning now.
Yes.
I see it as
you must be a leftist to enter this space.
If I go in there, I have to believe in gender identity ideology. Yes. I have to, get on board with all of this stuff. I see it as tribal now.
Yes.
It's a shame because
it's become 100% political. I have friends of mine in the States. My friend David, Brokeback Patriot, good friend of mine. Him and his friend Rogan, who is a straight guy, went to gay pride in St. Petersburg, Florida, biggest pride in Florida. And with a MAGA hat on, he got bullied by other gay people. When did this become so political?
Yeah. Well, that's an example, isn't it? If you're wearing a MAGA hat, you can't be gay.
Right.
What was it? Was it Peter Thiel who, there was an article, I think in The Advocate, wrote about how he may sleep with men, but he's not gay because he supports the Republicans,
Being gay is not a political identity. You can't be politically gay. Although people will say that you can.
Yeah.
Yeah, they'll be like, well, I'm politically lesbian. What does that mean? No. That's ridiculous. You can't be politically black either.
I wonder where trans people who are on the right fit into all of this, because they're not very prominent. You don't hear much from them.
I have 3 or 4 friends. 2 of them I hung out with on this trip.
Yeah.
My friend Ashley, Rose of Dawn, I don't know if you know her.
Yeah.
And my friend Marcus, the offensive tranny. That's his name. Right, that's his name on Twitter. And they're very much moderates, and maybe a little bit further right than I am. And it's sad. I do my best to push their voices. And it, like you were saying, it's sad because they don't get the recognition and they don't get the airtime.
Yeah.
It's always the woke, the woke people like Alok, whatever his name is.
Yeah.
And it just makes us look even worse, doesn't it?
It does.
Because remember, back in the day, gay people were like, we're just like you. We just want to have sex with different,
that was the key, wasn't
sex.
It?
That was it.
We're normal. We're not abnormal.
Right.
But it doesn't, that's right. The image of it now does a disservice to all those achievements.
We call me, Blair, Buck, Mars, this is all my friends. We call ourselves damage control. Because that's literally what this has become. It's job security. Joke. But I don't want it to be job security. I want to talk about fun stuff again.
Yeah.
But we're losing our rights in the name of wokeness. But we're also losing our reputations. We're losing people. I think, what was it? I can't remember. There was a study recently that I think it was it went down 20% LGBT acceptance rate in the United States. Yeah, it's the lowest it's been since 2000.
And you attribute that to this
100%.
Woke movement? Okay.
100%. Because it was up until about 2015, it was going up, 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 up.
Yeah.
And then the woke movement started coming in right around that time.
So when you made that video, the first video where you sort of said, I'm not part of this group.
Right.
What was the reaction to that when you did that? Because that was what?
2.5 years ago?
2.5 years. Okay.
Well, there's different reactions, of course.
Yes.
I mean, and people can call me a grifter, they can call me all these things. The truth is, I didn't know what was going to happen.
Okay.
All I knew was that the energy and the beliefs and the morals on the far left I did not believe in them at all anymore.
Right.
And I wasn't going to subject myself to that. And I felt like I was in an abusive relationship with these people. I couldn't say what I really felt. I couldn't even hang out with people that thought differently. You couldn't even follow somebody on Twitter. Why are you following this person on Twitter? They're a TERF, they're a bigot. That means you're a TERF. It's no, maybe I just want to see different perspectives.
Yeah.
You can't, this is all abusive behavior tactics. If you look at traditional abusive behaviors, right? In a relationship, a guy, anything.
Yeah.
A guy, even with the controlling of the finances, right?
Yeah.
They're trying to get us canceled and fired from our jobs.
Yeah.
That's abusive behavior.
So you saw this was going on.
This is all happening. And I was like, this is not normal. This is unhealthy. This is abusive tactics, emotional and sometimes physical. People followed Lacey Green home, throwing things at her. This is crazy. And she's on the left.
And she's a feminist on the left who was... Yes, I remember. She was sort of gender critical, wasn't she?
Yes.
And that was the sin.
Right. Exactly.
Even though she was so popular on the woke left.
Right.
Similarly with J.K. Rowling,
exactly.
Of course. It seems to be this issue, doesn't it?
Yes.
So in that video, then you were just basically expressing yourself. You're saying,
I just don't want to be associated. I never even came out to being on the right because I'm not on the right. I'm a moderate libertarian, classic liberal. Leave me alone. Don't take my money.
And yet that's
crazy now.
To be moderate is now deemed to be controversial. To
be conservative.
Maybe we don't
Nazi.
put kids on puberty blockers. Maybe we don't, teach kids about gender identity.
At 4 years old.
At 4 years old. That doesn't seem to me to be unreasonable.
It's not, because the truth is it's not. It's these people are just whatever they don't like about us, they will call us, they will throw a word at us, racist, homophobic, transphobic, whatever.
Yeah.
Just to control the net, just to control us, to make us say whatever they want us to say.
Do you think the kids thing though is what's going to tip it? Because I think when you go after people's
it's already
kids,
starting.
Yeah, people
Virginia, right? All these different states are changing the laws.
Because you see some of these teachers on TikTok boasting about how they've taught 4-year-olds about multiple gender identities and all this sort of stuff.
Crazy.
And a child doesn't understand any of this stuff. I mean, it's a pseudo-religious belief for one thing.
Yeah.
So you really shouldn't be imposing that anyway. But you know, it doesn't. You know, sometimes I think, oh, am I just being really stuffy and old-fashioned? And I think, no, you're dealing with 4-year-olds.
No, 4 years old. Like, if you are actually, like, their whole thing is, well, the kids might be trans or they might be gay. Okay, but if that's the truth, if that's why they're imposing this, you know, this ideology on them, that's not accurate. Because if you're actually transgender, if you're actually gay, you don't need somebody to come in and tell you those things.
Right.
Hey, you might be saying, it's like, no, you know inherent, like, there's something in your brain. Like when I was 9 years old, like I knew I was different. Yeah. I didn't know why or how, or exactly how it was happening or why it was happening, but I knew all these little girls like wanted to flirt with these boys, and I was like, you know. And like that was it, and I understood it. I didn't come to terms with it until I was like 18, 19.
Sure.
Which is very different now. Kids are coming out at like 12 years old, and that's great if they're actually gay or trans. That's great. But 4 years old, you don't need to be teaching kids because honestly, you can't, like, I'm sure there's going to be one person in the comments. I know one person, but like name one person that would be okay with teaching this ideology, gender ideology, sexual orientation to 4-year-olds that's not on the left.
No, I can't think of anyone. No way.
So it's purely a political thing.
Well, also, when I read an article like my 3-year-old came out as transgender, I think this is like this is the parent's worldview. 100%. How could a child?
100%. Yeah, there's a lot of lesbians that message me on the daily that say, and the same for me, right? Like I was very not typically, you know, a woman back then, like a young girl. Like I played boys' sports. I liked boys' clothes because I didn't like my body. But that's very typical of gay kids.
Yeah, well, they call that a tomboy.
Right, a tomboy, you know, right? Yeah. That's very typical. Like, it wasn't until I came out of the closet that I started dressing more feminine, which is kind of weird. It's usually the opposite, but it still makes sense because you're more comfortable with yourself. You're going to dress how you feel comfortable.
So that's a good question though, isn't it? Because I think one of my concerns is about gay kids, actually.
Yeah.
Because
they're yes.
Well, if they're gender non-conforming, if a boy doesn't like football and likes to play with dolls or whatever.
Right. Oh, they're trans now.
Right.
Or gender queer or whatever, all these other...
Which feels like...
Gender non-binary.
Yeah. Well, it feels like you're heterosexualizing them. You're fixing them. You're making them...
Yeah.
You know, it feels like there's a kind of a latent homophobia underneath a lot of it. Like we don't, you know, I think...
It's woke homophobia.
Right.
It really is, yeah.
So, I mean, you say from what you've described, you were a gender non-conforming kid.
Yes.
Is there a chance that had you been raised now?
100%.
You know?
100%. Besides the fact that I was very much a leader. I wouldn't have followed this trend. But I definitely would have looked at it and been like, I wonder if I am. Like, you know?
Yeah.
I didn't like my body, which is very trans, right?
Yeah.
It's not that you don't like your body, but that's what they're saying it is.
Yes.
I dressed in boys' clothes. I liked boys' things. I played sports. I didn't like dolls. My dolls were like on the wall. I hated them. I never looked at them. They collected dust. My grandma would buy them for me and put them, look how pretty. I'm like, I hate it. Hated it. I mean, what little girl, I don't know. I never really understood that either. What little girl just likes looking at, you know, the pretty thing?
Oh, some of them do, yeah.
I guess, but I just never understood it. It's not how I was built. And I liked women. Yeah. Not sexually at that age, you don't know what it is. But when you're like 9 years old, you can understand romantic orientation.
Yeah.
Which is why, but that's a big difference with what the teachers are saying, you know, like with the Don't Say Gay bill.
Yeah.
A lot of them are like, well, I can't talk to kids about being gay. No. You can talk to kids about a romantic attraction. Oh, my partner, look, my wife, blah, blah, blah. Because that's romantic attraction. Kids can understand that at a very young age.
Well, also, I think it'd be a bit weird if a teacher, like, you know, because teachers all the time say, I went, you know, shopping with my wife at the weekend or with my husband.
And that's fine.
And it's just a casual reference.
You're allowed to do that with the Don't Say Gay bill.
Right.
You are.
But but I think when teachers sit down and say, right, I want to tell you all about my sex life.
That's not okay.
Like what?
Agreed. Not okay.
That's a different thing.
That's sexual orientation, not romantic orientation.
Right.
Like when I was, I'm trying to think, my goddaughter was about like 6, 7 years old. She saw me dating women.
Yeah.
Not being sexual with her, like these women in front of her. But like I would be holding them or like kissing them on the cheek and my goddaughter got it instantly.
Yeah,
she didn't question, like kids aren't that stupid.
Yeah.
They're really not.
Yeah.
And it wasn't a sexual thing because at that age, they're like, oh, like my mom and dad kiss on the cheek.
Yeah, it's fine.
They hold hands. Like, she got it.
And that's the way you tackle homophobia, and just make it normal and everything. But sitting the kids down and instructing them about stuff that they couldn't possibly comprehend anyway.
No,
I think
because they're not sexual beings that young of an age. I mean, a little bit, because like little kids masturbate and stuff, but like they don't really know what it means. They're just exploring their bodies. That's a big difference compared to sexual orientation, like looking at people and wanting to have sex with them.
So what's with this trend of? I see it all the time on TikTok. Teachers boasting about their indoctrination. I think I saw one in one of your videos. You played a clip of a teacher, trans man, talking about how, I tell the kids that a doctor guesses your sex at birth.
Right.
And he used the word guess.
Yeah. It's like, no, that's actually not true.
But
he observes the sex.
Right.
He might be guessing the doctor could be guessing if you're going to be cis, I hate that word, cis or trans. Because technically that's even up in the air. That's not what they're saying, right?
Well, that would be like guessing what religion they're going to be, or guessing whether they're going to be a Marxist or a capitalist.
Right, because you can't see what's in their head, right?
The doctor's job is to observe the sex and record it, right?
Yes, that's it.
So when I see a video like that, I'm thinking, does that person really mean what they say? Is that an authentic belief? Because it seems mad.
I think a lot of them do have mental health issues. I think a lot of them do. I think some of them, even if they don't really believe what they're saying, I think that they think what they're saying is helpful.
But that's the problem, isn't it?
Because it's like a means to an end, right?
And a lot of them, I think, are probably good people who think that they are saving the world.
I do think that, because I was on that side. I really do think that most of these people are good people, and they don't see how this is harming people, harming kids especially.
And the flip side of that is when people like you are critical of it, they will instantly interpret that as evil.
Correct. Which is not what we're doing. We're like, we can sit down and like have some nuance to this, right?
Yeah.
They don't see it that way. That's one of the reasons I left.
So then how do we get beyond that? Because, it's almost like there's something about this ideology that completely prevents people from having those conversations.
Right, exactly.
Because they interpret
Which is why they took away free speech.
Right, they're completely against free speech. And it's that thing of, if you interpret the world as simple binary of good and evil, like a Disney film, there's a hero and a villain and that's it. How can those conversations happen?
They can't. And that's another issue, right?
But then how do we
I don't know the answer. I don't know the answer. I will tell you though, like the last few years that I have been, quote, not on the left or on the right, whatever you want to call it, it's funny because whenever I retweet and then like quote the tweet and message somebody on the left, the conservatives will be like, don't even bother, they're crazy. Like, and I'm like, I'm trying to bridge the gap. And they're like, watch, they're like, another year, you're not going to want to bridge the gap anymore. You're just going to be over it. And it's true. It's kind of like, I've tried to bring them together, to bring us together and have middle ground. They won't let us.
This is what I struggle with, because on my show every week I want to get trans activists on. I want to get people who believe in gender identity ideology on. I think I've had one or two agree to come on the show.
Oh, they don't do well with people they don't agree with. But because the truth is, I think their arguments start to fall apart, right?
They do, and maybe they know that. But I wouldn't be combative. I would want a conversation about it.
You would want a genuine conversation. Yeah. Of course, I'm the same way.
But they
can't handle it. Like either mentally, like mental capacity wise, or emotional wise, or they're just mentally ill. I don't know.
Well, I think some of those TikTok videos, they look a bit deranged, some of those. I mean, the way they stare down the camera.
Eyes, yeah.
Oh, it's really scary.
No, some of them, yeah. I mean, LGBT people are known to have more mental illnesses. I mean, I have clinical anxiety, an anxiety disorder.
Right.
That's not the same as what these people are doing.
No.
But we are known statistically to have more mental illness. So to have other mental illnesses on top of that, not a surprise to me.
No, and but what is it about the teaching profession that attracts these particular people?
I don't know. I think it's a power thing. I think like we said, they truly believe that they are saving the world.
Yeah.
And what's the best way to change the world? Indoctrinate kids.
Yeah.
Bring them up the way you think is best.
But also, you've got a captive audience. You're the center of attention. It's all about you.
Narcissist. There's some narcissism in there, for sure.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Because the way they talk it's like, why are you telling these kids about your lives so much? Why
is it all about you?
Because that's the opposite of what a teacher is. A teacher is supposed to be about the kids, first and foremost about the kids, and that seems to have been forgotten.
Right.
But I used to be a teacher, so I get the temptation to pontificate about your political views if because you've got a captive audience. You're going to beat them in an argument because they're kids.
Of course.
So I get it, but I was always I was always very guarded against that because I'm like, I shouldn't be imposing. I'll challenge. I'll play devil's advocate. I'll do that kind of thing.
Right.
But if you use the classroom as a forum to sort of
just boost yourself.
Basically, I think that's really sad.
It is sad.
So you're now YouTubing full time. Basically, this is your career.
It's been my full time job for like 8 years.
Did you ever want to do anything else? Did you ever have any other ambitions?
I worked in advertising for years. That's what I did before this, and now I just realized that people need my voice.
Well, because when you started, you were saying it was, you were having fun with it.
It was so much fun.
It was light and
yeah.
All that. But it feels now that there's a lot at stake. It feels like actually, it feels important now.
Well, did you see what Lori Lightfoot, the mayor of Chicago, just tweeted, which is hilarious? People are getting on her case, which it's deserved. She just tweeted yesterday something about the Supreme Court's going to come for LGBT rights next. And it's like, that's your fault. People on the left, that's your fault. If they do, I don't think they're going to.
Right.
But if they do, it's your fault. What changed in the last 5 years? This woke ideology stuff. We were good with gay marriage and everything else. Everybody was good. Gay adoption, nobody. Yeah. I don't know any conservatives that are against gay adoption at this point. Not one. Unless they're like far, far right. But that's like always, right?
So then, but the argument that they make is that, these debates about gender identity ideology, the way that people are saying, well, like people like me say, I don't think I've got a gender identity. I don't think it's a thing. Mm-hmm. People compare that to old school homophobia of the 1980s. They say the struggle for trans rights now is the same as what gay people went through in the 80s.
And that's a fair criticism, and that's something that I was actually asked by an ex-friend of mine. It was actually, I think we were in Toronto at a film festival, and he's like, he was on the fence at the time as well, and he's like, well, maybe we are being like the people 15, 20 years ago.
That's
that
the fear, isn't it?
Right, but I don't think so, honestly. I really don't, because it doesn't logically make any sense.
The reason why I know it's not that is because I know a lot of gender critical people. None of them are transphobic. I don't know anyone who doesn't believe in trans rights.
Right.
And that's very different to what the situation in the 80s, where they literally wanted gay people to be criminalized.
Yes. So I mean, they were arrested in the 60s, right? In Stonewall in New York City, yeah. So that's why we had the march.
So it's not the same thing at all. This is something that's very different.
Yeah.
But I also understand that when people see these debates from the outside, they think it's the same. They think there's just a bunch of feminists being transphobic because they're constantly smeared in that way.
Right.
Why is it, do you think, at the moment that feminists in particular seem to bear the brunt of the abuse and the kind of, because I see it online and I've seen the kind of open misogyny that I haven't seen for decades.
You said the answer, yeah. That's misogyny, 100%. 100%. Like, I would bet my life on it. These people on the left claim that they support women, that they like women, but they also at the same time want to erase women's rights. They want to erase what a woman is. They want, and they come for people that have actually experienced, like J.K. Rowling, and me, like abusive. We both, not in the same way. I believe she was physically abused. I was emotionally abused, but we both have had those types of relationships.
Yeah.
So if you're claiming to support women and you're claiming to, prop up women and raise women's voices, why are you only raising voices from one side? And that side happens to be not actually for women's rights and women's voices. And
why is there such a blind spot when it comes to the overt rape threats, death threats that J.K. Rowling gets? Thousands and thousands of these things. How can
standing outside her house?
Right.
Insane.
How can people not see that's not a group I want to be associated with? That's a dangerous.
Because people don't want. Because if you call that out, they come after you.
That's it.
I think it's that simple.
So it's a culture of fear.
100%. Classic bullying. So what has to happen is people like me have to step in and we have to bully the bullies.
Is that your approach? Then?
Yes.
Just go after them?
I mean, pretty much, yeah. I'm not gonna bully some random little trans kid that just is, confused.
Yeah.
I go after the people that are out there that have audiences as well. And I'm like, and I still don't feel like I'm bullying them.
No, you're mocking them and you're, sort of criticizing them.
I'm criticizing them.
Yeah.
There's a big difference between that and being like, oh, you're ugly. Like, I'm not gonna, that's stupid.
Yeah, of course.
It's a stupid argument. It's not an argument, it's a no argument. But I'm gonna be like, this is why this is wrong. Or this is how you can think of it differently. Think of it from this perspective. That's not bullying. They'll claim that it's bullying because you're just criticizing them. But it's like, then, okay, they're criticizing me, so is that them bullying me? No, I can't be bullied because I'm not trans, or I'm not black, or I'm not whatever. So then, so many of the celebrities, though, in America, it feels like they're on the wrong side of this. And, and I see them tweet out, and like people like George Takei tweeting out about how if you talk about biological sex, you sound scientifically illiterate. He's an idiot. He's an idiot. I think he's an idiot. I really do. I think part of me thinks that these, again, I think it's such a specific, I think all these conversations are so specific, right? Like the Leah Thomas situation, the transgender swimmer.
Yeah.
Versus like, there's all different paths we could go on. All these all these different issues. But what celebrities tend to do, and what like blue check marks on Twitter tend to do, is they paint it broadly.
Right.
Because they just want to seem, we accept everybody. And it's like, okay, but if you're accepting these people, it affects these people.
Right.
So you're giving more rights to these people and it hurts these people. How is that fair? But they don't want to say it that way. They'll just say, we accept everybody. And it's a very broad stroke, but it actually doesn't dive into any of the details.
So the issue with the conflict of rights that you're identifying there is very specifically about women's rights.
Right.
Versus, but I would expand that and say also gay rights, I think, are at risk here.
Well, because if you can't define a woman, how can you define a lesbian?
Right. And that's embarrassing as well, watching politicians struggle with that simple question. We have
Supreme
it here a lot.
Court Justice,
Yeah.
Supreme Court, who is a woman, can't define the word woman. If we can't define a word woman, this was my favorite take on it. Why was it so important that Joe Biden nominate one?
Right. Okay. Exactly. But also,
why didn't he nominate you that identifies as a woman?
Right. But it's not that they can't define it; it's that they won't.
They won't.
Right. So it's that's what I think is so galling about it, because we're all sitting there and we're like, we know you know the answer, and you know that we know you know the answer.
Yes.
But we all are colluding in this thing because we know we can't express the truth because
Which
of the current
is the issue.
climate. Right. So, and in a sense, that's why what you're doing on YouTube is good, because you can you just say what you think. And
which is what most people think, I believe, honestly. I really do believe that. Because I know, and you know probably, like we get people that come up to us in the streets, right? And we like, still say it, but they'll say it secretly, right? Like they walk up to you. Like back in the day, I went to VidCon, no longer invited there.
Right.
But like little kids. But, teenagers that were LGBT would come up to me, give me hugs, and, even 20-year-olds, I love your content, whatever. Now, not the same people, but people around the same age, 20s, 30s, whatever, they same with Blair White. We talked about this in a video recently. They're afraid to admit that they like us in public.
Oh, yes.
They'll come up to us like in the club or something, and they'll stand next to us and be like, love your content.
Yeah.
And then walk away, and we're like, what was that? Like, what just happened? Like, they won't hug us. They won't like look us in the eye.
Yeah.
At Pride events, people come up to me just letting you know I love your content. They won't look at me. Like they're like, oh, I'm over here and they're right here. And they're looking this way and they love your content. Okay, see you later. And they walk away. Because they don't even want their friends. Yeah, they don't even want their friends to know that they like what we're saying, that they agree with us.
Well, sometimes I get a lot of messages from people saying, thanks for saying this stuff. I can't say it, but thank you.
Yes.
That sort of thing. And that to me, I had an experience at the Edinburgh Fringe Festival a few years ago where an old comedian friend of mine was there. And I said, oh, hello. And I went up to her and I was like, can we chat? And I could tell she just wanted to get away. She was nervous about being seen with me.
Yes.
And this is someone I'd known for years.
This is a real thing.
I've never said anything controversial. I haven't changed. I'm not.
Right. People are afraid. They're truly, truly, truly afraid. So, and it's a shame because, and these are the people that call themselves activists, right?
Right.
That's not what activism is.
Yeah.
There's no activism without risk.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
Are you at risk for losing something? Then it's not activism.
Maybe that's the problem, is that they consider themselves activists, but what they are doing is peddling an establishment line. And the job of the activist isn't to reaffirm what
everyone already believes, right?
They're not being subversive if the people on their side are academia, big tech, the Biden administration,
media, everything.
The Duke and Duchess of Sussex. Like you're not anti-establishment if you've got all these people on your side. Yeah. So maybe the problem is a matter of self-perception. They think they're radical and activists, but they're just not.
I do think they do. Yeah, I think part of them does think that. Which
and
is
they
why
think they're victims, right?
Oh yeah. That's another thing too. Yeah, it's just like But I think part of them does think that they're I agree with everything that you said.
Well, so then
it's perfectly said.
How do we get into a situation where, if it is the case that most people are on side with what you're saying, but they don't want to vocalize that because they've seen what happens when people do, how do you draw those people out into a world where we can all be honest again? How do we do this?
I think you have to just continue to speak out like we are. I think you have to be the leaders. Like honestly, there have to be more leaders.
Because we can do that.
Now we can.
We're not going to get cancelled or whatever.
Well, I did get cancelled, right, a bunch of times, and I lost hundreds of friends, of friends. I lost sponsorships. I lost deals. The only people that were like on the right, which in my opinion are really technically moderates, that I knew beforehand, well, besides Blair White, were Tim Pool and Sidney Watson.
Yes.
They were friends of mine throughout everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, and even when I was on the left, they were friends of mine because they're actually good people.
But then even Tim Pool gets attacked a lot for
all the time.
You know, for not being sufficiently brutal to the other side.
Yeah,
you know?
but you have. It's going to sound like a funny comparison, but maybe you can relate to this. They call it a second coming out for a reason.
Right.
Right? Because there is a risk, again, activism, there's a risk for losing everything. Your friends, your family. Like, I know people that came out of the closet as Republicans or conservatives, and they lost family members. Like, people won't talk to them. Their own moms are like, you're crazy, you're terrible, racist, whatever. And you can lose your job. The same thing back in the day when you came out of the closet as a gay person. You can lose family, friends, job, status, everything. They call it a second coming out for a reason.
That's
why people are afraid, right?
So, and those risks are real, like you say.
They are.
You know,
of course.
My job depends on me saying what I think. But if I was still a teacher, I couldn't say the things I want to say.
You can't.
You know, and that does mean that we are in a situation where it feels like things can't get any better under those circumstances.
The only way it's going to is if we have more people taking that risk. That's it. Because if we know the truth, if every single person said what they really thought.
Oh yeah. It'll be
over.
Done with it. It'll be over.
We'll be done with it. Done. We know this.
And
but most people are afraid. I mean, in life, most people are afraid.
But it's got to end, because the alternative is pretty horrifying. Imagine if it's been going so quickly. Imagine if this trajectory just continues.
Yeah.
Like
people say, trans rights have gained more notoriety and trans activism has gained more rights in the last 5 years than gay rights. It took gay rights, 50 years?
Yeah. But I'm still kind of confused as what rights trans people think they don't have. Because in the UK, they have equal rights and equal protections.
I agree, same.
You know, I accept that there are unpleasant people who will attack them for being trans or say horrible things to them for being trans.
But that has nothing to do with government.
That's not what I'm talking about.
Right.
And, and I believe in addressing that and challenging that, But I struggle to see, and I also struggle when the language is so histrionic. They'll say things like, you are literally erasing our existence. How? When's that happening?
Exactly. Well, because what they mean is you don't see yourself the way you don't see me the way I see me.
Right. So then it becomes about, it's what you said earlier.
Well, then that's gaslighting.
Yeah.
Don't believe your own eyes.
Yeah, that's it.
Don't believe your own biology teacher.
Exactly.
That's really what it comes down to, which is emotionally abusive. Mentally abuse.
Do you think that's what's happening with the pronouns debate?
Yes. Yeah.
Because that
if you don't see me how I see me, you're a bigot.
But also there's an added pressure on people who aren't even involved in this debate. Even at the Scottish Civil Service, workers were told, sign off your emails with your pronouns. So it's kind of creeping into...
corporate world, regular.
Corporate world, government.
Yeah. It is.
Whatever. And that, to me, it's not quite compelled speech because no one's saying you must.
Right. But if you don't, you're a bigot.
Exactly, basically. So what's the choice?
What's the choice? You have no choice.
So again...
Unless, everybody stands up.
So that's the solution?
That's 100%. That's always been the solution. That's what gay people did, right?
Yeah.
In Stonewall, we literally stood up and said, we're going to fight back.
Yeah.
And then the police were like, okay, crap, we can't really.
Yeah, we can't keep trampling on your rights.
I mean,
basically.
you see drag queens are crazy,
yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, they're the ones that basically, black lesbians, historically speaking.
Yeah.
There's a black lesbian and a bunch of drag queens at Stonewall in New York City that started it. Not trans women, but that's just,
But there's a revisionist thing about how this was a trans movement.
Yes, but that's not true. I have friends that were at Stonewall in 1969.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
I have 2 older gay men that are friends with me that were there at the riots. And Martha, whatever her name was a drag queen. And so was the other person. And they even say in interviews, I was a drag queen.
Because one of the men who was there, Fred Sargent, he got kicked.
That's him.
Oh, okay.
Fred.
He got kicked off Twitter, didn't he?
Yep, he did. He got kicked off,
for giving an honest account of what happened.
Yep, they kicked him off.
I mean, that's mad. Mm-hmm. So in terms of Twitter now, because,
He's still on Facebook, thank God.
Oh, is he?
So that's how we talk. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So in terms of Twitter, because things seem to be shifting with Twitter, obviously you make your living through social media, so I imagine it's quite important to you.
Oh, yeah. Thank God for Elon Musk.
Oh, really? You think this is...
I hope so. I really do. I hope. I think he's gonna. I think he's gonna change some things and bring some people back.
Have you had any issues with social media censorship yourself?
Yes, the whole time. I've been making sex positive videos on YouTube since the beginning.
Yeah.
I was still making sex-positive content after I came out as leaving the left. All of a sudden, I get demonetized.
Oh, really?
Right when I came out. 3 months, every other month I would get demonetized for that content. Not for the political content, because, well, they said it wasn't for, but I think it was.
Okay.
They would say, oh, well, this is, sexually explicit. Meanwhile, it was me in a bra.
Okay. That's very Victorian of them.
Little Nas X can, have sex with the devil in his video.
Yeah.
And, have, the circle blurred in his video of just dancing around the jail naked,
Yeah.
But I can't be in a bra.
So how many times have you been demonetized?
5, I think, at least 5.
Really?
Oh, yeah. And it lasts for a month. So it's like a month's worth of salary gone.
And have you seen on... Yeah, but that's the other thing. It really matters for your living.
It does, right.
But then on Twitter as well, I've lost count of the number of accounts of people I know
oh my God.
who are decent people
right.
who've been kicked off for stating biological facts,
yeah.
or even arguing in a robust way or whatever. But there does seem to be a political problem
100%.
with social media. So, but what could Elon Musk do? Because
I don't know.
Because Twitter's under pressure from government as well to censor stuff and keep things in.
I think he has FU money.
He really does.
He really does, like J.K. Rowling. So I think if it's going to be somebody, it has to be people like that.
And what would you like to see from the platform? Just.
I would like to see them bring some people back, and I would like to see them make the algorithms public.
Yeah.
So we can have proof that they were restricting certain voices. Because that's illegal in certain countries. And free speech exists. You can't censor voices like that.
Where would you draw the line, though, in terms of online discourse? Is there anything that you think, okay, that should probably be cancelled, that should be deleted?
Death threats and doxing, I would say.
Okay.
Yeah, that's where I would draw the line.
So criminal activity, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, like it's actual threats. That's where I would draw the line. Not somebody that disagrees with you. People disagree with me all the time. I'm like, okay. And they call me names, all right, whatever.
Yeah.
You're not threatening my life. It should be allowed to stay on there.
And yet those things, doxing, harassment.
But threatening your life
could
be just misgendering somebody these days. That's the issue.
So that's another issue, isn't it?
You're literally killing trans people. You're literally killing. It's like, are we though?
Well, I've been thinking about this a lot, about the way in which most of this culture war stuff is about language, is about,
Well, but that's the issue, right? And the right knows that pretty, what is it? You control the language, you control the narrative.
Yes, because if we have a world
communism.
where everyone has shared definitions, that means we can have conversations, that means we can make progress.
Right.
But if we're in a world where someone says, oh, racism doesn't mean hatred towards someone because of their skin color, it's an equation, privilege plus power.
We can't have the same conversation anymore.
Then the conversation ends.
Right.
Or, no, homosexual doesn't mean same-sex attract, it means same gender attract. And then you're in a whole other world. And then
you just get new words, super straight, super gay.
Super straight,
Do you remember that whole thing?
I do, yeah. What was that about again?
It was people that were, they were claiming, the left reclaimed the word woman and the word lesbian.
Yes.
So there was a guy on TikTok who was like, well, people are calling me transphobic since I won't date a trans woman, so I'm just going to do what they do and make up a new identity. I'm now super straight.
Super straight. I'm super straight.
I only date someone that's a biological female. He played their game.
Yeah.
And of course, they hated him for it.
Of course.
But that's what they're doing. They're creating new versions of, they're recreating, they're using our words and creating new meanings for it.
But it's so confusing. I mean, I saw someone come out as demisexual, and what she said is, what that means is, I'm attracted to men, but in a sort of romantic way. Right. And I was thinking, but that's just heterosexual, isn't it? That's just quite an old-fashioned heterosexual. Right. Yeah. But she now is under the queer bracket.
Of course, because they want those extra woke points.
That's bizarre to me.
I'm demisexual too, technically. Like, I won't date a woman unless I won't have sex with a woman unless I'm romantically interested and emotionally connected.
Right.
That's most women.
That's most women, isn't it? Yeah.
Yes.
But that's what I find strange.
I fit that definition. I don't claim it for more oppression points. It's a stupid thing. But most women are like that. Most lesbians are like that.
Because if you have these multiplicity of identities, pansexual, abrosexual, whatever they are.
Oh, abrosexual, my God.
I mean, I've even forgotten.
No, that's a real thing.
Yeah, I've forgotten what it means.
I forget too.
Yeah, but it could be anything.
Yeah.
You've got all this stuff. And then I saw this survey recently that said that among American Gen Zs or Zs
are the most likely to be LGBT.
I think 40%.
Yeah, but that's because the definition of LGBT expanded, not because there's actually more homosexual kids.
No, there can't be. So most of those kids will be straight, right?
Yes.
But now they get to call themselves queer.
Yep.
Which is
offensive.
Which used to be a word used to attack people like us.
Yes, which is literally offensive in my opinion. You're co-opting the words. You don't have that lived experience.
I really don't understand
why.
But
if I put black women's hair on, like, braids, then I'm co-opting their existence.
Right. Yeah, it doesn't make sense.
Where does it end?
That's something I've really struggled with understanding, is why you would want to identify yourself into an oppressed class. What's going on in their minds there?
Oh, do you not know?
Well, I don't know. I mean,
I think it's just because they want to be victims. They want to be victims because then they can blame the world and not have any personal responsibility.
So since when did victimhood become a source of power? Because that's what it sounds like.
When the left started saying, lift up people's voices, lift up marginal voices.
Do you think they had a point to an extent as far as there have historically been people who have not been heard? There are historically people who are marginalized and...
Of course there is. There's truth to it, but it's an extreme overcorrection is what they're trying to do.
Right.
Extreme overcorrection. Like it's like beforehand, people on the far right were saying, gays need to be killed and gays aren't real, or being gay is a pedophile. It's obviously not the same thing.
Yeah.
And now it's like anybody can be gay, anybody can be trans. The words don't even have any meaning. It's like, how about you kind of meet in the middle, because that's where the truth is.
Yeah, exactly. So that's why I think it's also difficult to fight back against, because there is, as you say, a grain of truth.
Yes.
In what they're saying. So when they say, gay kids at school probably have a hard time coming to terms with, who they are and the rest of it, that's true.
Yes.
And that will be true. I don't see how it helps, though, to
make everybody gay.
Yeah.
No, it's like, that's not what it is. It's like they have a problem with people not being different, but being seen as different.
Yeah.
Which is very weird, because they all try to look different, even though they kind of all look the same.
Yeah. All those TikTok videos, they look identical to me. Same. Yeah. They're always white as well.
They're always white.
You pointed that out in a video.
Because they are. What's that about? Like, it's a cultural thing. It's a cultural phenomenon with these young white middle class suburban girls.
Yes. Yeah. Middle class, most definitely. This feels like a middle class movement.
Yeah.
So you say that you've had these demonetized issues and stuff. You've lost all these friends, and you mentioned about a conference that you don't go to anymore.
Oh yeah, there's all the conferences. They all like banned. I mean, they don't say that, but they don't invite me anymore.
Well, that's the thing, is when it happens, you don't get statements or anything like that. It's just a kind of more subtle, insidious
it's passive aggressive.
Thing.
Yeah, they don't.
Have you ever challenged it? Have you ever sort of said, "Why am I not coming back? Why are you not having me back anymore?"
No, because the truth is, I feel like I've outgrown it as well.
Okay.
I have, and I'd rather do things like this.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't benefit me to fight for that at the moment.
And then what about...
Unless it was affecting people that I knew that wanted to be at those things. Right. But none of us do. We're like, no, let them have their own say, and I'm going to go on something that actually respects what I'm feeling.
And then what about friends though? Do you ever try and restore those friendships, or try and...
I never tried to cancel. I never tried to end the friendship. They were the ones that unfollowed me, or unfollowed me and then made videos about me.
Really?
Or made up rumors. Yeah.
Well, friends made videos about you.
Oh, please. People that I went to their weddings and stuff like that. And I slept over their houses for months at a time. Well, not months, weeks at a time.
Yeah.
I had an ex-friend rather, lie and say that somebody has a restraining order against me. That's a big lie. Yeah. Because that means that I would have had to either physically harm somebody, or in the United States to have a restraining order.
Yeah, yeah.
Either you have to physically harm somebody or threaten somebody or something of that nature.
Yeah.
I've never done any of the above.
Well, that's libel, actually.
Yes, I could have sued her probably. Yeah. But, I let it go.
That's extreme. So making video, and is it all about just they disagree with you? That's it, ultimately.
I don't know. There's no way I can tell. Either that person heard it from somebody else and believed them, or they made it up. There's no way I can tell.
And I wonder whether...
But they were tweeting about it.
So this kind of hysteria, that it feels like in this country, a lot of it came about with Brexit. People literally, families split apart. It was like that.
Right.
Donald Trump, 2016, similar thing.
Right.
It became very, very tribal, very, very ugly,
right.
The kind of discourse. And I think people went a bit mad during all this time. I don't know what it's like in America, but here with Brexit, I now have friends who at the time were not talking to me or whatever, and they've sort of realized they overreacted. And they've
I think that's with COVID too. A lot of people are kind of coming around finally.
And
they're admitting that they were wrong.
Well, that's maybe a key step forward, isn't it?
I think, but nobody wants to admit that they're wrong.
No.
That's the hard part, right?
So do you have hope that these friends who, stabbed you in the back in this way, that one day they'll come back? Or you're not interested in...
I don't think I'd be interested. I think for their own good, I hope they do.
Yeah.
Because they still have power over a lot of people that watch them. And I worry more about the kids that watch them.
Yes.
Than them. So it's for like the greater good, so to speak. But I don't think I would be friends with them anymore after this.
Just because
they stabbed me in the back.
Yeah.
I'm not doing it. Yeah, I don't deserve that. I would never have done that to them. So.
Do you find that ever since you've made that video and you've done your second coming out, do you have more a broader political spectrum of friendships now?
Yeah, I have friends that are on the right, not the far right, but on the right.
Yeah.
That are that are not pro-choice, that are pro-life. I'm pro-choice in certain situations, of course.
Yeah.
And we still get along and we hang out, and like there's never an issue. Because we can understand that there are different situations that come across, like, you know?
Yeah, I mean...
And different people have different perspectives because they've had different life situations.
I find that one of the saddest things is that when all of my friends used to be left-wing and I didn't know any right-wing people, and we would all, slag them off and say how evil they all were.
And then you meet them in real life. They're actually, it's the opposite of what we were told, isn't it?
Like, I've now got lots of right-wing friends. I still have lots of left-wing friends, but I never hear the right-wing friends demonize...
Never. No.
And they don't mind you disagreeing.
Right.
That's the key thing.
Yes.
And I do disagree because politically I am still on the left. So when I talk to right-wing friends about economic issues or the welfare state or whatever, we'll disagree. And they don't think that makes me a monster.
Right.
And it's quite refreshing. It's quite nice.
Yeah. That's what, there's that cartoon, even Elon Musk tweeted it, right? It was like the right, the left, and the middle. And it's like the middle kind of always stood here. The left went over here. But now because the left went so far away, the middle looks like it's more on the right. And it's like, actually, we haven't moved, really.
That's it. That was I think that's Colin Wright's cartoon about... I think that's what it was.
Colin,
and that seems to be now such a shared experience. I know a lot of feminists, lesbian feminists here who now write for right-wing papers because of this issue.
Yeah.
Because that's the only place they get a platform now, because the left isn't interested anymore.
The left we say that a lot. The left hates women. They do.
I mean, a lot of people think that's at the heart of it.
Yeah. I think most of them do. I think, well, if you want to take away the very definition of what keeps us safe, I don't think you like us very much, Yeah. Yeah.
Do you think that a positive thing that could come out of this, though, is that women seem to be, there seems to be a new feminist wave happening now off the back of this?
Yes.
I think there's a re-energized...
Well, the gender critical feminists.
Right.
Yes.
Which have come from the left and the right. I've seen,
either side.
And that can be more powerful as a feminist movement, maybe.
I mean, J.K. Rowling's kind of forwarding that, isn't she?
Yeah,
She's kind of leading it,
Yeah. So do you think
Queen Turf.
Queen Turf, is that what they're calling her?
That's what I call her. I don't know. Because they call me the Queen Turf, and I'm like, no, I'm going to reserve that spot for her. Yeah.
But and she's obviously getting under people's skin. Did you see that New York Times advert which said, imagine a world without imagining Harry Potter without its creator, a world with Harry Potter without its creator. That was part of their...
So they were shaming her, basically?
They were basically saying, wouldn't it be great if...
Oh, is that what they were saying?
We could still have Harry Potter without the creator.
F off.
Yeah.
F off with that. Honestly, it's... The woman who, it's funny because she's what the left would have loved back in the day. Mm. A powerful woman who had a lot to say, who was brilliant, who slept in her car.
Yeah.
Right? Made one of the most, honestly, the most money,
huge.
most money, most...
Well, it rejuvenated children's literature for a whole generation.
Forget it. I was 13 when it came out. Yeah, it changed my life. My mom's obsessed with it. We live in Orlando now. We go to Disney all the time. See this, go to Universal, see this all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, it changed our lives.
Yeah.
And she was in a domestic abusive relationship. Yeah. She is the old left's dream.
So is the problem then that the left has lost its way?
Yes, 100%. Because she is the epitome of what the left would have loved back in the day.
Yeah.
And people that are in the middle, like you and I now, still love her.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because we haven't moved.
So then, is there any way that you see a future where people on the left will start to reclaim what it means to be left-wing? As in, it's not about this obsession with group identity. It's about money. It's about class. It's about social mobility. It's about bringing people up in the world. And not, and not allow those people within their ranks who are, as you say, misogynist, aggressive, threatening, to lead.
To take over, right. I think, I don't know. I don't know how to answer that. I think it's starting to happen. Mm. But I think, again, like I said, we need more people reclaiming the word. I try to distinguish liberal from left. Okay. I think that's a big part of it because the actual definition of liberal is what I am.
Yeah.
Leftists is not what I am. I'm not a leftist.
And liberal means something very different in America. People just use it synonymously with left-wing.
But they're using it. The leftists are taking the word liberal.
Yeah.
But that's not. Look at the word. That's not the definition. But again, they're changing the definition of these words.
So maybe it's about just reclaiming the definitions and.
I mean, it's also a branding thing, right? As stupid as that sounds, I went to art school. I studied advertising. Conservative sounds like a scary word.
Yeah.
And progressive sounds. No, it does. Like, it's a branding thing too. Like, we need a new word.
Yes.
Conservatism needs a new word because conservatism sounds like closing the doors.
But also progressivism at the moment, in the way it's used at the moment, is misleading because a lot of the ideas are regressive.
Yes.
Just as they
Which is why I want to, exactly.
Well, they call themselves liberals, but they're illiberal.
They're not.
So if they're using words which are the opposite of what they mean, then it's almost impossible to fight.
Yes.
They now say, for instance, when people started using the term woke, which is what they used to describe themselves as.
Right.
And now they'll say woke is just a right-wing slur that was invented to attack us. But it's like...
You created that word.
Yeah, 3 years ago, you were calling yourself woke.
Literally.
Jack Dorsey had a Stay Woke t-shirt
They would say stay woke, right.
Yeah. So...
Hashtag stay woke.
So it's not just changing definitions, it's also...
Lying
about the past.
Right. Well, that's a communist thing, it's a communist thing, right? Rewriting history.
Right.
Yeah.
And that makes it impossible to... Well, I say impossible, but I think...
More difficult.
I think what you're saying is absolutely right, that... Ultimately, it's about collective courage, isn't it?
That's a great way of putting it. Collective courage, I like that.
And if we have that, maybe we can come out the end of this, because it does feel like we're living in hysteria to me.
You're telling me.
And particularally the gay community, I think, is tearing itself apart over this.
Yes.
It's not good. Arielle, thanks so much
for
joining me today. I really appreciate it.
That was a great talk.
Yeah, it was really fun.
That was great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This has been the Free Speech Nation podcast with me, Andrew Doyle, and my guest, Arielle Scarcela. If you enjoyed the conversation, please do check out Arielle's YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/Arielle. Nice and easy to find. And if you enjoyed the show, please do like and subscribe and come back next week where I'll have another fabulous guest. Farewell.